Hey folks, this is Kelani. It's getting to be around that time again where a lot of people just end up getting burnt out. We've been playing the same expansion for quite a while now, and we've been in the current raid tier long enough for us to get a little sick of dredging through the Tomb of Sargeras in hopes of some crazy Titan Forged loot, or just sick of trying to recruit rogues, depending on how far in Mythic you've gotten. Burning out seems to be just all too common in Legion, whether it be the faster content pace and lack of downtime, the heavy RNG focus that seems to come with any area of the game, or simply you're getting a bit bored. So let's have a look at what you can do to alleviate some of that boredom and hopefully prevent you from burning out so hard you throw the WoW folder into the recycle bin. Now, the first thing I would suggest to anyone approaching Burnout is to take a step back. If you're playing the game day in and day out, that's probably the reason why you're feeling so leaden when you log into WoW. Just take a step back and you'll realise that you're probably grinding through way more than you actually need to. You can leave a world quest or two on the map. It's not going to kill you or stall your character's progress for several months. You can let one or two emissary quests expire. You don't have to clear your map every single day of every single objective. Hell, you can even go a day or two without doing any world quests at all. A shocker, I know, but I recently tried it for the first time and your character doesn't fall down dead randomly because you missed a little bit of artifact power. You can take a break from some of the more mundane chores that the world presents to you in everyday WoW, especially when there are so many catch-ups in place that will give you a bigger and bigger boost as time goes on. There's also no massive need to be on top of everything. We're not at the start of the expansion where everything was fresh and new and you could get an edge by spending a little more time. Grinding your face against a wall is eventually going to hurt, so maybe take a step back. Or you can take the almost opposite approach and step up. If you haven't experienced high level Mythic Plus or Mythic raiding, now might be the time. That might be what you're lacking in your gameplay experience. Find a guild or try and make some friends across the myriad of Discord servers and forums which are dedicated to Mythic Plus or raiding, and get a group going. Up your game and challenge yourself if you have the time to do so. You could find a whole new caveat of enjoyment if you haven't played at the cutting edge before. I'll warn you though, it's a rocky road and you might end up just as burnt out, if not more, by the end of it. Even though you might feel like you've done everything there is to do and everything is just the same old, if you've only done it on one character, then you could find some enjoyment in starting all over again on a different class. Recently I stopped playing my hunter as much because I was getting a little tired of it, so that's why you see a paladin in most of my recent videos. Taking on a different class meant I had to learn a whole new way to play. I went from range to melee and from a DPS only class to one where I can do all three roles. That's a lot of change in one go, and it definitely gives me something to work towards. If I ever want to tank or heal, I can do so, and if I just want to sit back and mindlessly smash my weapon into a monster's face, I can do that too. The change of pace is so refreshing that I would recommend a switch up to anyone who's feeling a little bored of what they're currently playing. Even going from just melee to just ranged can change up things in ways you might not expect, especially when you get into dungeons and raids again. If you're looking for a real challenge while changing what you play, go for the different role approach. Swapping from a DPS to a tank or healer can give you an amazing change of perspective and give you a better appreciation for what your fellow players have to deal with in various situations you can be put into. It's interesting to put on some different shoes and lead a dungeon as a tank, learning and taking the most efficient routes through dungeons and focusing on encounter abilities and positioning more than anything else, or learning how all of your healing spells and tools work together to help you keep your allies alive. It may be the same game, but you're playing it an entirely different way. Taking things one step further, we also have a bunch of class-specific content in Legion right now. I just finished up my class hall campaign on the Paladin and got the class mount, which was really cool, and I've been working on the Mage Tower challenges whenever it comes up. Whatever class you decide to roll and level up, when you get into the Legion stuff, quite a good chunk of it can be a very different experience when you swap your class. If alts aren't your cup of tea, there's a lot to do in this game which isn't usually considered a lot of the time. If you're tired of what you're doing currently, whether it be world quests or mythic raiding, take a break from that and take the road less travelled. Check out some of the less played areas of the game. The first one would be PvP, which seems to have lessened in popularity with every expansion, but hey, it's still there, believe it or not. Even though we haven't got a new battleground in several years, the old ones are still there, but your class will probably have changed quite a bit, especially if you haven't PvP'd in Legion. There's a whole other talent tree which you might have only seen when doing PvP world quests, but it's apparently quite useful in actual PvP, so that's good to know. You can gain a variety of rewards as you level up your prestige as well. But if plain old boring PvP isn't really your thing, then you can still check out the new brawls. As someone who doesn't enjoy PvP all that much, I get way too competitive and I hate to lose, the brawls are just hilarious misadventures. They're the same thing as pretty much any brawl system in any of Blizzard's other games. They take all the usual rules, and then they throw out a few, or just tweak a few so they're fantastically broken. Then they throw you into it and say have fun. It's an awesome way to break up the monotony, and it's something the dev team can always expand upon because there's no balancing, no real restrictions that they have to worry about or abide to. They literally just get to have fun with the system, which means it's always fun to play. On a slightly more casual and laid back note, pet battles are still a thing. I know it might seem like they haven't had many changes since they were first implemented, but pet battles can get pretty complex if you actually get into it. On the surface it's just wow Pokemon, but if you decide to delve deeper, there's a whole bunch of strategy and meta stuff that I still don't fully understand. I've browsed through a few forums and some Discord conversations, which kind of leave me thinking I missed the memo where pet battles weren't just this simple little thing added on during Mists of Pandaria. It's also an enormous part of collection hunting, so if you're into catching little critters to tick them off a list, you can catch them all in World of Warcraft. I don't know what you're doing still listening to me, go get yourself started with some pet battles. But if shiny pets that can sit on your lap don't interest you, what about looking super shiny yourself? Everyone wants to rock a cool outfit, just wearing your tier gear is so last expansion. Enter the Transmog system, which isn't just for hiding those ugly capes and monster shoes Blizzard seems so fond of. Now we have an actual list of any and all transmogs that are in the game, we can easily see where we can go hunting for them. It's another collection tab which increases your fancy pants potential with every new piece of gear you tick off that list. Some transmog looks are actually pretty hard to obtain. Some of them will cost you vast amounts of gold or time, and it's not something you can do in a day, which makes it a good time sink if that's what you're looking for. It's also pretty rewarding at times. Completing a set that you've been wanting to flaunt around Dalaran is a great feeling, almost as good as making the sets to begin with. Seriously, you might be a fashion designer in hiding and not even know it. There are some really cool setups I've seen that are pieced together from a vast array of gear from every expansion. You're also going to be hunting around in older expansions, which could be a breath of fresh air if you've never seen those places before, or a huge wave of nostalgia if you have fond memories of them. Running through Icecrown, Black Temple, or even Molten Core again for Transmog sure do give me blasts from the past, even if I didn't fully understand what I was doing back then. Transmog is a great excuse to go out into the world and explore some of the places we've left behind. In the same vein, you can also knock out a few achievements here and there. There's plenty of stuff which might have been too difficult or time consuming when it was relevant content, but still has achievements tied to it. You can go back and knock down almost every old raid achievement there is, only a few require more than one person. There's a whole bunch of rewards which come along with the achievements too, mounts, pets and titles to mention just a few. So if you're really bored, you could draft up a list of achievements that you'd like to get done, or maybe pets that you want or mounts you'd love to ride, and set to it. It's a great way to keep yourself occupied for a little while, and it takes you away from the busyness of the current expansion. Now if you want mounts specifically, there's a whole bunch which aren't tied to achievements, so you might want to hunt those separately. You can find really easy mounts to obtain, like the faction reputation mounts, which just require a bit of reputation farming, all the way up to the raid achievement mounts or the rare mount drops, which take a bit more time and effort. But the ones which are hardest to obtain are usually the coolest and rarest, so when you get back from your Legion break, you can really show off in Dalaran while you're running those laps. Now, if all else fails, one huge part of World of Warcraft and enjoying your time in this world is who you spend that time with. If you don't have many friends online, or you haven't joined a guild, or you're in a guild which just mass recruits and no one actually talks to each other, maybe it's time to spread your wings a little bit. It's never a bad option to find a different guild if you're not happy with the one you're currently in, and you can use the opportunity to shake things up a little bit. If you haven't tried raiding, maybe find a raiding guild that's just starting up. If you've been raiding way too long, maybe try find a casual guild that's really active and does random bits and bobs, or maybe even jump off the deep end and head over to a role-playing server and join a role-playing guild. I've seen a lot of posts on Reddit from players who have done just that, and it's been a great boon for them and their enjoyment of the game. Don't let yourself sit and stagnate. Playing with some fresh faces might create a few sparks and reignite your love for the game. You can also play the game without actually playing the game, if you're interested in gold at least. One thing some people don't consider is that some players actually play this game as more of an economics adventure as opposed to the demon slaying the rest of us are doing. Some people literally just play for the gold and the auction house. Now, you might think that a little strange, but I can tell you the first time you come online to a mailbox with hundreds of thousands of gold worth of completed auctions, I don't know if there's a feeling that compares to that outside of Mythic progression. It's addicting to say the least, setting up your professions for maximum profit, figuring out when certain trade goods sell and when they're available for cheaper prices, knowing how much a specific item is worth and when you can snag a deal. It's actually really enjoyable. If you haven't poked your toes into the gold making game, I would suggest starting small so you don't get too overwhelmed, but I promise you when you start seeing your gold go up and up and up, you might forget you're actually playing World of Warcraft. You might not leave Orgrimmar or Stormwind for a while. One of my friends is an accountant in real life, and you'd think he'd be all over this sort of thing. Or maybe just avoid it entirely because that's what he does for a job, but he hadn't really paid much attention to it until I clued him in into a rather long-winded but ultimately very profitable gold-making shuffle. He needed a bit of gold for this, that and the other, maybe for a token, but I think he spends more time in the auction house now than anything else these days. He even has 3 extra accounts which are all funded with tokens, and all he uses them for is expanding his little empire. He might have gone a little crazy with it, but hey, if that's what you enjoy, have at it. At the end of the day, if you're really just tired of World of Warcraft as a whole, you can take a break from Azeroth. You can spend some time in another world, or maybe even the real one if you really want to. I would suggest maybe taking a break from MMOs in general so you're not hopping from the same thing to the same thing, and you can actually give yourself a chance to take a break from that type of gameplay. Maybe pick up something that's single player. There's been a lot of really good games recently and a whole bunch more on the horizon. Depending on what systems you have access to, there's really too many options, but you can leave Azeroth for a while. It's not going anywhere, and your characters will be ready and waiting when you get back, all reinvigorated with passion and purpose, ready to take on the next chapter of the World of Warcraft. Until the next time you get burnt out, but then we can do this all over again. That's the fun part. So, I hope that I gave you some ideas to stave off the boredom, which is all too common this time of an expansion. Hold out for a little longer and we'll have some super exciting news very soon, I'm sure. But that's it for this video. What do you do when you get a little bored of World of Warcraft? Do you take a break from the game, or do you change up how you play? Leave me your stories down in the comments section below and we can get a good discussion going. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always, I will see you next time.